thingamajig.
Yeah, it's preparing the stream. And we should be live.
Pretty soon.
Yeah, it's preparing.
Sweet.
Yeah, it's preparing the stream. And we should be
And
live.
I've got it muted. And pretty soon. We're good to go. I can't see the chat though, for some reason.
Okay, let me check and see. Oh, I can see it.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, well, we need to both see it. But anyway, we're live, Chris.
Live.
We are live, and I am so excited. This is the maiden episode, the maiden voyage, our first foray into real fertility answers. I'm just delighted to be here with you.
Yeah, it's going to be a blast. I'm excited.
Yeah, so yeah, I can totally tell. This is why we are such a good combination, because you're like mellow and like I'm not. So let's talk about, so for the ladies that are going to be joining us, let's talk about, all right, so if a woman finds herself in a position where she's ready to start her family, and the endeavor that she thought was going to be a simple prospect is starting to turn out to be it's not so simple, and she's starting to actually struggle. Like, let's talk about from our respective areas of expertise where a woman who, and actually I think this applies to not just women who are starting on their journey, but maybe women who want to press the reset button on their journey. Maybe they've been going down this road for a little while, and now they're like, hey, you know what? Things aren't working. Where do I go from here? So why don't you kick this off?
Well, first of all, if someone's first starting out, the most important thing is that, what we're told when we're kids is, if you're a boy, don't get, you can't release a sperm anywhere near a female. And that if you're a female, you can't get within 10 feet of one single sperm cell, you're going to get pregnant. And that's true at that point in our lives. When we're teenagers, pretty much, a female is probably fertile. When a teenage female is probably fertile for at least 10 days out of her cycle, literally, because of the fact that the internal environment is so hospitable, and the egg is going to live like once a 16-year-old girl ovulates, her egg will probably live in the tube waiting for sperm to come by and say hi for like 5 days, and on the flip side, a young male, like a 16-year-old male, has typically very healthy, very young sperm that will live 10, anywhere from, 4 to 5 days inside the female. So you've got about a 10-day window where fertilization is possible. As we get older, life, the way nature works, we just simply don't, we start to have not quite as much energy. Our bodies don't heal as fast, and we start to accumulate a little more tread on the tires, so to speak. And so the eggs don't live as long in the tube. The sperm doesn't live as long as there either. So you start needing to narrow down your window a little bit and make sure that you are having intercourse at the right time. That is the most fundamental thing, I think, that a lot of people don't realize when they're first starting to get pregnant. They think, oh, I'm just going to go off birth control or stop using condoms or whatever. And then boom, I'm just going to be pregnant because that's what they told me in high school or middle school, because again, that's what would happen in middle school. But if most of the people that, as you know, Roseanne, most people these days are waiting to have their babies until, especially people who have college educated, who are really career oriented, they're going to wait until they're in their, at a bare minimum, late 20s, sometimes early 30s. And, at that point, it's not like we're old, but when you think about the fact that prime reproductive age, and we'll end up getting into this topic, Roseanne, I'm sure at some point.
Oh, I'm sure.
Prime reproductive age is really 16 years old, 17 years old. It's a fact.
Mm-hmm.
This is biology. You know why? Because I can show you charts that just 100 years ago, literally in 1920, when the 1918 flu pandemic, World War One, even in most industrialized countries, the average lifespan was less than 50 years.
Right.
So, nature, and then prior to that, prior to the Industrial Revolution, the average lifespan was less than 40 years. So you were a grandparent by the time you were 35. And also people grew up a lot faster back then. We didn't have all these institutions. We didn't have, when you were like, if you're Jewish like me, bar mitzvah, you're 13 years old. It's like, you're a man now. All right, man, get busy, get to work, start your family. Like, you got to start living like a man at 13. Now, the world wasn't the same back then. You better know at 13 how to take care of your business, right? Nowadays, life's kind of easy. We can kind of wait and just chill out. But nature hasn't quite caught up to that yet, right? So when we're in our late 20s, early 30s, we can start to show some signs of reproductive decline. So we need to make sure that we're ovulating the right window. I think the other thing that you would say, Rosanne, I'm sure, is the fact that if you've been trying for a year and you're not getting pregnant, you need to go get checked. Go ahead and go to the doctor. Make sure there's no really bad problems because I've seen thousands of couples, and I have seen couples out of those thousands, they come in, they've been trying for 3 years, they're not getting pregnant. They haven't actually really gone and done any kind of in-depth testing. When they finally do, they find out the husband has like 3 sperm in the semen, or the female, both tubes are blocked. So basically, they were just practicing for 3 years because there's no way they could have actually gotten pregnant. It's important to know. I think everybody should have, my opinion, everybody should have a preconception checkup. Like before you start trying to conceive, go to the doctor and just make sure. It's like if you were going to get in a camper van and drive from New York to LA, I hope you would go check air in the tires. You would get the oil checked. You would make sure, all the basic things you need to work are going to work, so that once you're on the road, you don't break down in the middle of Kentucky or something like that. And you need, roadside assistance. Same thing with fertility. Really, it's like, especially anyone who's 30 and above, go ahead and get checked. Now, granted, sometimes it's not a big deal, but if you're watching this and you haven't been checked, you need to be checked. All right. That's
yeah. And from a mindset perspective, it's also part of taking control early on.
That's right.
From a place of just wanting to be educated, like, hey, what's the story here? Are there things that I need to be aware of? Because I know for a fact that one of the things that anyone watching this, if they're one of my ladies and probably one of yours too, is this idea that time is of the essence.
Mm-hmm.
And we can use time to our advantage, or we can use it to torture ourselves. And like in the example of a couple that you're talking about,
Mm-hmm.
trying for 3 years, it's like, if you just take a super proactive perspective and say, hey, I'm not going to be afraid of this. I just want information. I just want to get in front of this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's 3 years that you can use in a more proactive way, rather than on the backside of that, freaking out that you quote unquote wasted 3 years.
Right. Absolutely. And again, it 9 times out of 10, well, I think it's the stats right now are something like 1 in 8 couples is going to have trouble. And that's probably because those 1 in 8 couples have one of these issues that I'm talking about: blocked tubes, really, really low sperm count, or 0 sperm count, or some type of actual physical obstruction to getting pregnant. Whereas the other 7 couples, doesn't mean that none of them are going to have trouble, but it just means that if some of those couples have trouble, it's going to be something that is going to be discovered, just once they start trying, and they're just not getting pregnant. And a lot of times those things can be fixed by diet. In other words, unexplained things, like we can fix those with diet. We can fix those with, changing just how we're living every day, and bring ourselves back into a place where we're taking care of our energy. We're taking care of our physical cells and tissues. We're doing things that are going to help to create a really healthy rhythm of hormonal function, which, by the way, men also have hormonal cycles, although they're not quite as long as females. In fact, our cycles are 24 hours. But we do have a cycle, and there's ways that men can screw up their hormonal cycle, just like there's ways that women can screw theirs up. And the bottom line is, you know, when we're starting to try and we're having trouble, I mean, obviously, the first thing I really do think, once you realize you're having trouble, go talk to your physician. It's important because they can run tests and they can just make sure, again, like the tubes are open, the uterus is normal, there's actually sperm there, so that we have a possibility to get pregnant. And then once you know those things are okay, that's when you need to maybe start doing, and again, I don't want to say a bunch of research, because really what you need to do is read my book and read Rosanne's book, because our books, like
Well, yeah,
my
I read
book,
your book, and it is pretty awesome.
I mean, I'm not ashamed to plug my book. The reason I'm not is because when I wrote this book and I started giving it to patients, which again, I've been doing this for almost 20 years, and I've literally helped over 20, at this point, probably over 2,500 couples who actually now have babies. That's
Yeah.
not 100% of the people. There's never 100%. But this book is based on real experience. It's based on in the trenches, like, not a bunch of theory, not a bunch of research articles, not a bunch of other stuff that's just going to like basically overwhelm the average person to read that stuff. This is like from years and, over a decade, and helping thousands of people and really boiling everything down to the most essential things, so that you don't, because it's so easy to get overwhelmed. The reason is simply, if your car broke right now, a car is a really complicated thing nowadays. And would you even attempt to go online and research, how do I fix my own car? Would you do that, Rosanne?
Nope. Not a chance.
Yeah, but if you did, do you think that pretty quick you would start to get overwhelmed? Like, oh my God, like,
yeah,
it's
probably after
way
the
more
first click.
complicated than I ever thought it could be.
Yeah, probably after the first click. I mean, and I know that what you're saying is true because I live this journey myself.
Yeah.
And have also like taught and coached, I mean, thousands of women myself. So like, this is why we call this Real Fertility Answers, because it's real. We're keeping it real here. You as a clinician, me as someone who was in the trenches as well.
And someone who experienced it firsthand, which I did too, but it was a very brief experience that didn't go well with one IVF cycle, but it did open my eyes to, hey, this is not quite what I thought it was. But I didn't experience it firsthand as a woman, which is a totally different thing. I mean, totally different.
Yeah. So like, okay. And so if, so basically what we're talking about here is some very basic education, like educate yourself, get your baseline. Like if we're asking, hey, where do I start? Now, for women who have already been on this journey, maybe going through a few rounds of, tests and maybe some initial lesser invasive treatments and things like that. Like, let's talk about how those women might be able to start pressing the reset button, and then we'll get into the mindset stuff as well.
Well, I think the most important thing, it doesn't matter where you are on the spectrum. The most important thing to remember is your body does know how to do it. Nature knows how to do this. Your body is nature. You are an extension of nature. So there's this myth or this erroneous thought process that a lot of people subject themselves to around, my body's broken, my body forgot, my body's working against me, my ovaries hate me, or whatever. Bottom line is, no part of your body hates you. Your body loves you very much. And in fact, most of the time when we're having trouble with anything, it doesn't matter whether we're getting sick a lot, whether we have pain in our body, whether we're tired, whether we can't sleep, whether we can't get pregnant. It's because our body is, what we are doing, and this is the hardest thing for people, as you know, Rosanne, one of the hardest things for people to do. And and I'm not saying it's easy for me either, But when we run into a problem, to take ownership and say, hey, you know what? Somehow I'm creating this problem. Somehow I'm contributing this problem. And when you're talking about something within your body, you're definitely contributing to it, because you're the only one who is living inside this body. So whether it's how you're eating, how you're sleeping, the types of thoughts that you continually entertain in your mind, and the types of emotions that you tend to latch onto and stay habitually focused on, whatever those things are, that's setting a state. It's setting like a thermostat in your body. And that thermostat can sometimes not be on the most fertile setting. And there's a lot of things we can do. And that's one of the problems. There's so many things we can do with our bodies. It's infinite. But when it comes to, making our bodies ready to conceive, I'm going to tell you right now, we're starting off with the biggest epiphany of them all, okay, which is what my book is based on, is the fact that fertility is always an expression of surplus energy, meaning your body is never going to give as much as, and I know this can sound weird at first, because you're thinking, well, but it's my baby, so of course my body's going to give as much energy as it can to my baby. And absolutely it will, but only surplus energy. The reason it's surplus energy is because, first, guess who has to be okay? Guess who has to be healthy? That's right.
Mama.
That's right.
Mama's got to be healthy. Yeah.
That's right.
No. Well, your point is really well taken. I mean, and that's why I was so excited about doing the show with you, because this is a topic that a lot of people just cannot wrap their minds around.
Yeah.
Is, that's the first thing, is that, a physician's going to fix me. And it's like, wait a second. If you're going to be strategic in your thinking, and if you're really going to set yourself up for success, it all starts with you.
Yeah.
And that's not coming from a place of blame.
No.
I mean, that's like the title of my book. Here's a shameless plug. Am I the reason I'm not getting pregnant? The fearlessly fertile method for clearing the blocks between you and your baby. Like, if you're not asking this very basic question of what is my role in this,
yeah,
it doesn't matter. Like, I mean, and I know this because, my husband and I invested well over $100,000 in treatments.
mm-hmm.
And I promise you that almost every single one of them that we went into, I expected to fail.
Yeah.
I totally expected to fail. I was totally, had my head wrapped around an axle by all of the previous failures and all of the other things that had gone on. So Mama, to your point, was not well.
No, Mom was not well. That's right.
No, all of my energy was just in such a really dark place that I couldn't help myself. I couldn't help my treatment team. I couldn't stand up for the vision I actually had. Because I didn't trust myself. I wasn't doing all the things that could have been really helpful. Like, say, hey, yeah, can we do something less invasive first? Can we do this in a more measured way, as opposed to automatically presuming that because I'm, 37 years old, that, hey, I got no options, right?
Yeah.
Like, that it was such a skewed notion. And going back to your point earlier, when I first started my illicit affair with Dr. Google, and late at night at 2 a.m. till my eyes bled.
Yeah.
I said how to get pregnant in my late 30s or whatever. And like, like
the rabbit hole opened up.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that, your point is well taken, and seeing, you helping women, at your clinic,
mm-hmm.
With all of the physical things, you also, by right of attending to those things, see the mental things, see the spiritual things, see
this absolutely
other thing in play.
Mm-hmm.
You know what, Chris, why do you think medicine, and again, we're not here to malign medicine. We love medicine. There's plenty of miracles, like all of this stuff can coexist.
Yeah, half my family's MDs, so
yeah. And like, probably half the women I coach are physicians, and it's like, we love all that.
Yeah.
But I think there's a point when we have to empower ourselves beyond that, because it's part of the equation. It can be part of the equation, but not all of it. Do you have any opinions about why do we jump immediately at medicine to fix this for us? What do you think that's about? Do you think that has something to do with the point you were making earlier about we don't really want to look at ourselves?
I think part of it is that we just are very poorly educated on how our bodies work, and most people don't really want to know. I think when we're young, we really have no desire to know how our bodies work, and we really don't need to, because our bodies are so resilient, so strong, so powerful that they'll just pretty much overcome anything. But when we start to get older and we start to have some problems, suddenly now we can get into a place where we really want to know how our bodies work. But typically it's only after treatment has failed. So people will go to treatment and they'll go to the doctor, which I think is a good decision from the standpoint of let's find out what's wrong. I think that doctors, there is a little bit of the hammer and the nail thing where, if you're a hammer, the whole world's a nail. You just want to hammer on everything, because that's what you do. You're a hammer. So doctors are trained to believe that and I'm talking about conventional medicine doctors although this is changing, I'm seeing a lot of the younger doctors that I'm meeting now that are coming out, and that closed-minded way of looking at things is not as prevalent. But by and large, conventional doctors are sort of trained to believe that they have the ultimate medicine, and that if they can't help you, you're screwed. That's basically what they're trained to think. And so they're very confident in what they do, and they're very confident in their treatments. And, their treatments do work. Let's not, again, like we were saying, let's not malign. IVF can be for some people, it can be the only way to get pregnant. And it is, and it ends up being the only thing that does take them to a place where they're going to have a baby. And I help, again, at least 50 to 60% of the people I work with are already doing IVF. So the point is, though, is that it doesn't matter how amazing the treatment is, and IVF is an incredible, incredible technology. If it's like this, it's like if I want to plant a seed in the ground, okay. And what IVF, if you imagine, IVF is only one thing. IVF is like the sunlight, right? So we're going to increase the sunlight to try to make this seed grow. And again, IVF is a lot more than that, but just for the sake of this analogy, IVF is just the sunlight, right? But what about the nutrients in the soil? What about the water in the soil? What about the general temperature of the air that's out there? What about the level of humidity? What about all these different things that are going to also be factors in how well this seed is going to, and how healthy this seed is going to be as it's growing, right?
Right.
So you can take this amazing technology, IVF, and you can increase the sunlight, the signal that tells the egg to grow, but you're not going to have the healthy egg if all the other factors, you can't just squeeze like a healthy egg out of a system that is depleted. Like, again, going back to the energy thing, if you have a cell phone and there's only 10% battery, you're not going to be able to talk on that phone for long before it runs out, right? If you take an IVF, only is going to put more stress on that battery, because it's like a really, really intense app that pushes the phone to run at like 3 times what it normally does. So the problem is that doctors aren't really properly educated in some of the concepts that I talk about in my book and that I've talked about with you. This concept of, energy reserves. How much energy do you have in reserve so that your body could dedicate those resources to growing a healthy egg? And you would think, oh, this egg is only it's like the size of a poppy seed, right? That's really about the size of an egg. And you think, oh, come on, it's not that much. But the thing is, again, our bodies are really smart. They know what that egg is going to end up becoming.
Baby.
Yes. And that initially, that baby is essentially a parasite that is going to take energy. And it is the literal definition of a parasite. Why? Because the baby's DNA is not your DNA. It's a different organism altogether. And it is the only situation that's known in all of nature where a self organism will allow a not self organism to attach and begin to take blood and nutrients. But again, our bodies are not dumb. They know that this egg is going to become a baby and that this baby is going to take energy from me. Therefore, if body knows I can't really afford to give away a whole lot of energy right now, I'm already depleted, I'm sleep deprived, I've been fed this, I've been eating food that is not very rich in nutrients, I've been skipping breakfast, doing this, again, this intermittent fasting thing that just totally destroys my reserve energy. And I've been, working 12 hours a day for, 10 years, and I just don't have the energy for a baby. So I'm not going to do it. Why? Because again, body loves you first. Body is going to make sure you are okay first.
Right.
And
Survival.
So,
And I think your point's well taken because, when I'm working with women in my own coaching practice, I mean, I see a lot of women that are in survival mode, lovably type A, control freaky professionals that are just slaying it in their lives. And a lot of them, this is a new idea because I think for a long time we were fed this idea that we got to bring home the bacon, cook it up in a pan and do all that stuff. You know what I mean? Like, where it's like we have to do everything. And there's a significant difference between having it all, which I absolutely take a stand for my ladies having. But there's a huge difference between having it all and doing it all. Because, this is the most important work they will ever have as mom, as parent, as the person that's carrying this dream that they absolutely desire. So, I think from the physical standpoint and practical standpoint, it's like, yeah, look at your energy reserves. Where are you? Let's start with that very simple point of this first conversation we're having is, hey, if you're struggling to get pregnant, answer this, like, take a look, just take a basic look at your life. Like, what is my role in this? Not from a place of blame, but truly from a place of education. Get checked. Look at your energy. Do you currently have space in your life and in for baby? And then when I'm thinking about this from a mindset perspective, I would say to a woman, what is important to you? Really consider what's important to you about having this baby. It's a really critical question because we're used to answering that question maybe in a less overt way when it comes to our profession, right? We think, okay, we're going to put our back into this because we want money, we want stability, we want prestige, we want all of the trappings of a profession. We want security. So we know the whys that drive why we work 12 hours a day. But if you're going to reset or at least start, I mean, I always say to myself, oh my gosh, if I could only get my hands on women when they first start this journey, like it could be completely different. But like you, women come to me much later in that process, typically. And so we have to go back and say, well, what's important to you about this?
Yeah. And, I think a lot of people don't know the answer to that question. And there are competing interests, where we have self and then there's a very selfless aspect of having a child, but there's also, we have our sort of our life goals and all these kinds of things. And, people will sometimes, it's like, well, this is when I'm supposed to have a baby. Like I got married and now I'm supposed to have a baby, but their heart's not really in it. And that's really demonstrated by the behavior. I always say the language of the universe is action. Like universe doesn't care what you say. Universe, that you can pray, till the ends of the earth and pray and tell God or whoever it is how much you want a baby. But then if your actions say otherwise, that's what's going to be that's what's going into the record, and that record is your body. That record is your memory bank and your biology that's going to store that record based on your behavior. And that record is either going to lead to more exhaustion, more confusion, more anxiety, more, um, feeling lost, or that record is going to start showing its true wisdom. Now, and that's the thing, your body has the wisdom in it. And so much of this process is really, again, where to start by reminding yourself that your body knows how to do it, and that the wisdom of this process is already encoded in your body. And therefore, if you're having trouble, I guarantee you that trouble comes from 99% of the time comes from doing too much, not doing enough,
Right.
because the body doesn't need that much. What the body needs more than anything is space, and uh, it needs the space, and it needs the energy, and it needs the time. And those are the things that we're devoting to other things. We're devoting that space in our lives. We're trying to fill all the space with like productive things that we're trying to do, whatever. We're trying to fill all the time. We're trying to use all the energy, and we're not leaving anything for that process of baby. And again, sometimes that's because really deep down inside, we're not really sure we want a baby. I think that there are situations, and if this is you, if what I'm saying resonates with you, um, and you're listening to this, I want to make sure you understand this is not a judgment thing, like she was saying earlier. It's not a blame thing, but it's just an ownership thing, where sometimes we wait to do things because there's a lot of uncertainty around that thing. It's a big commitment to have a child. It's no joke. It's no BS, and it's scary as hell to think about it, for most people. And that fear can cause us to procrastinate and put things off. And so, it's okay if up till now you weren't sure, and now all of a sudden, okay, now I, finally we're at a cruising altitude, and I'm looking out the window of this plane, and that jump's gonna be 40,000 feet. If I would have just jumped out earlier, it would have been 10,000 feet. Now it's 40,000 feet. And it's a hell of a lot more scary. But you know what? There's nothing we can do about that. We can't go back. We can't recapture time. We can't go back to the past, and we don't have a time machine. So we've got to start where we are right now, and we've got to start learning some very simple things. And again, that's where the book comes in. That's where what I teach people comes in, is that it's really all about, it's the whole less is more approach, and it's about strengthening that wisdom and that intelligence within the body that already knows how to do it, and mostly, again, getting out of its way so that it can do what it knows how to do already. And you know um
Yeah, and when we have that in hand, and you get that, you start working on the body, you can start working on the mind and say,
right,
hey, why is this important to me? Because when you get why this is important to you, you're going to do what you need to do to get there. Because, I'm sure, as you've seen in your practice, I mean, I've had women of all ages, all sets of circumstances overcome the craziest odds
yeah,
when they get this on board.
that's right.
Speaking of which, Chris, let's see if the ladies watching have any questions. We've got 17 live watching
Oh,
right
cool.
now.
Awesome. Yeah, I can't see the thing, so you're gonna have to
Okay, so I'll watch
you'll be the moderator.
yeah, ladies. So if you guys have any questions, start typing them in the chat, and Chris and I will get to them. And don't be shy. Like, ask us anything from a mindset perspective. Chris will handle the physical questions, and we will
Or we
go
can
from
do we
there.
can do both too.
Yeah, totally. So you can ask us anything you
Mm,
wish. Do not hesitate. But I think this is a great way to start, Chris. I really hope that women listening to this are gonna like take a second and breathe and say,
yeah,
and I think your point is well taken as well, is it doesn't matter if you just decided not that long ago that it was time to start your family. That is just as valid as somebody who's known all their life they wanted to have a family. Sometimes it takes meeting the right partner to get those wheels turning.
yep.
And I think it's great. So, what would you like, just kind of from a general educational perspective, like if a woman is listening to this and she's like, starting to say, okay, like, where do I even start with this? Oh, what was that?
Oh, no, I just, it just,
Yeah, where do I even start with this? Where would you have someone start?
well, I have something, actually, it's a part of my book too. It's called the Three Foundations. And Three Foundations is basically really, really simple stuff. It's in fact, I'm pulling up the PDF right now on my screen. And if you want, I can show it. We can just go through it together. And then I can tell them how to get a copy of it. Is that cool with you?
Cool.
Yeah. So, um,
Don't forget, if you have questions, ladies, you can chat with us. Go ahead and type it in the
yeah.
chat.
So this is actually, something that you can get for free in my Axelrad Clinic Academy, which is my little free place that people can download stuff. And so really the three foundations, it's all very simple stuff. And again, this is where people are kind of like, and Rosanne, again, I'm sure you run into this too, where you'll say something simple and people can't believe it's that simple. And we're taught and we're indoctrinated, especially in the industrial scientific age, we're really indoctrinated into this mindset of complicated is better, or complicated is more advanced, or complicated is, things that are difficult somehow have more merit. But the bottom line again is that this fertility thing happens automatically when it's time. There's no thought whatsoever that goes into it. Even if you're doing IVF, you're going to have to think about the injections. You're going to think about the time to show up for your retrieval and all that. But the egg, the making of the egg, the maturing of the egg, the fertilization process, and the initial cell division of the embryo, and that embryo implanting, none of that depends on a single thought in your mind. You cannot engineer that. That is something that's engineered by a very deep spiritual part of yourself that is beyond conscious thought. So much of this again is about doing less. So what I'm going to tell you right now, the keys to success with these three foundations is don't try to do too many things at once. And that's why there's three foundations. Three is pretty easy.
Right.
Commit to this for 5 days in a row. So in other words, if you're going to do it, do it. Like, just give yourself 5 days. People will always look at me, especially when I tell them things. One of the things in this three foundations, which is drink water. Don't drink other stuff. Don't drink herbal tea. Don't drink anything other than water. And people are like, water, like only water? But what about flavor? Nope, just water. What about sparkling? Nope, just water. What about my herbal tea? Nope, just water. And it's like, do it for 5 days. It's not the end of the world. You can always go back to whatever you were doing before if you don't feel better. The issue is but here's the thing. If you do these three foundations, there's literally no way. It is impossible to not feel better once you've done this for 5 days. So commit to it. Keep a positive, open-minded attitude. Don't be hard on yourself. Focus on you. So if your partner or your friends or your fertility buddies or the people in the group that you're in that you chat with, none of them want to do this, fine. You do it. Okay, because really at the end of the day, you've got to be the one to do it. So just do it. And then action speaks. Again, talking about it with people, telling people about it doesn't help. You don't have to even tell anybody you're doing it. Okay, because that really kind of just dilutes the energy. So first foundation is 8 hours of sleep, 8 to 9 hours of sleep at night. Rosanne, how many people oh, I get my 8 hours, but I go to bed at 1, I wake up at 9 in the morning.
Right.
So in my book, I talk about the fact that there is a hardwired biological phenomenon called the adrenal circadian rhythm. I don't want to get too often into that, but you can research it if you want to. The bottom line is our bodies are synced with the sun. We're human. We're not squirrels. We're not bats. Okay. Bats are synced to something else, and they can be awake all night, and that's healthy for them. We are humans. We are not supposed to be awake at night. In fact, here in Houston, we just had this big freeze down here in Texas, right? And people were out of power for like sometimes 2 or 3 days in a row. And I just had my first few shifts after that, and I was talking to all my patients, and people were talking about, yeah, you know, it was like 8:30 at night, and I didn't have lights, and all we had was candlelight, and I just got really tired, and I went to bed. I was like asleep at 9. I'm like, exactly. That's what I'm talking about.
Do more of
That's
that.
nature.
Yeah. Do more of that.
Do more of that, right? So you don't have to go to bed at 9 or 8:30, but at least 10, okay? Like by 10 p.m., lights out, eyes closed. And people always say to me, but it's so hard for me to fall asleep. What happened? I'm like, just don't open your eyes.
Just go to sleep.
Just don't open your eyes.
Yeah.
You may lay there for an hour with your eyes closed, not sleeping. But you know what? That's still way better for your hormones and way better for your eggs and way better for your uterus than opening your eyes, getting your phone out, and start reading probably about a bunch of stuff that's just going to upset you and piss you off anyway.
This is probably the sleep killer right here, is that.
Yeah. So, and here's the thing, after you do this for a few nights, you know what's going to happen? Your body's going to say, oh, okay, it's time to go to sleep now. And then it's going to go to sleep. Okay. But it might take a couple of nights. So just lights out, eyes closed, and don't open your eyes. And trust me, you'll fall asleep.
Sleep, water, breathe.
That's it.
Sleep,
3 liters of water every day, water, and then 25 gentle belly breaths before bed. So this is really important. A, you oxygenate your tissue. B, you calm and relax your nervous system. And C, you increase, by doing both of those things, you're increasing blood flow to your ovaries and to your uterus. So if you're doing those 3 things every single day, those 3 things in and of themselves, if you're really committed to them, I'm going to tell you right now, that's maybe all you need, literally. And again, people will look at me like I just grew like a third eye out of my head when I say that, like, no way. And it's like, yes way. Because these things are so essential to how your body is going to function and how your body is going to, and just the strength that your body can generate. That is, and it's just, again, it's pretty mind blowing. So,
well, let's see if let me see if we can tell if there are any questions, because if somebody has typed something, I want to make sure that we are not missing anything. I mean, because this is powerful information.
It is.
And, you know, and I think the other thing is too, is like this, what you're describing is kind of the antithesis of the way that so many of us live. Right? Like, it's just, you know, everything is like rushed. Everything is like, oh, I don't have time for that. Like, breathing is a luxury. And most of us are breathing in our chest. Like, it's not all the way down to the belly.
Right.
Like, and we'll have to do a show where we talk about belly breaths, because I didn't know
what breathe. Yeah. How to breathe.
Yeah. We're like breathing all up here. Like, it's just like, we're just suffering, but like,
yeah, and you know what, Rosanne? It's not just kind of the antithesis of what you know, whatever you were. What'd you say was the antithesis of?
Like, these 3 things are like the antithesis of the way we typically live, right? We don't have time for this.
But it's also the antithesis of how people are typically coaching fertility patients, or people who are doing fertility coaching. And here's why: because you know, I've had people come in and they're like, I'm doing the castor oil packs, and I'm doing like these 25 supplements.
All right, I almost just spit my water
out. A whole 30 diet, and I'm, you know, this and that and the other, and I'm doing the fertility meditations. Okay, so what time do you go to bed? Usually I'm asleep by 1:30 in the morning or 11 at night.
It's a full-time job. 6. Chris, it's a full-time job. Like, it becomes a freaking full-time job. I mean, look, I live that. As a type A goal-oriented woman. You tell me like 50 things I'm going to do, I'll do 51. Yeah. Like, I'll find the 51st thing to do just to get an A+. But here's the thing.
What else can I do? What else can I do?
What else can I do? And it's like, what if you,
nothing.
Slow down. But it's also, you know, but people don't like to hear relax. And that's not what we're saying. Like,
Nope.
that's not what we're saying. Like, that's the
Nope.
most annoying thing that people say to women who are trying to conceive, just relax. No, I'm not going to relax about the most important thing to me. Are you kidding me right now?
Right.
But doing what we're talking about, what you're talking about here, and the way I coach my ladies to approach this journey in an empowered way
Mhm.
is about discernment. It's not about doing everything. It's about doing the right things for you. Because it doesn't matter what Mary, Joe, and Sally are fucking doing.
No, it doesn't
If
matter.
if that works for them, bless them, let them go. We have to look at ourselves. We have to look at our individual circumstances.
Yeah.
And it's just adding more things is not the answer. And also, that's actually a pretty good sign that you are not quite empowered on your journey, because you
Yeah.
have not applied some really, the important aspect of discernment. Is this right for me? Like, in my book, I talk about that, about your bump squad. Do you really need 75 people on your bump squad? Maybe, if that's good for you. But when it comes to, you leading that group of people toward your dream, because I think that's the other thing is we forget. This is about the stuff that's in our heart. This is about a dream. This isn't just about achieving a goal.
Right.
And, at the point when I gave up all of the crazy, because there was a point when I was doing, Chris, get this. I think I may have told you this, but like this is, I was doing vaginal steams,
Yep.
um, made with vagina tea that was made by a woman at Moonlight. Like all, it was just crazy. Like, I was out seeking all of this crazy shit.
Yep.
But not one of those things is what got my son here.
No.
I promise you, not one of those things, because I was not doing any of those things.
Mhm.
What finally got my son here was me.
Yeah.
And who I was being, because I was a hell of a lot closer to doing the 3 foundations than I ever was, with the prior years that we had been struggling.
Yeah.
Like, I had changed my life completely about, the way that I approached my life, the things I allowed into my life, and the discernment that I applied.
Yeah.
So you're onto something here.
Yeah, you just illustrated like that's kind of the paradox of struggle because like spider web, when a spider weaves a web, the web doesn't really the web just kind of initially catches something, but if that thing doesn't struggle to try to get out of the web, then it's not going to get tangled up in it. And it's the actual it's when the thing, whether it's a fly or a mosquito or whatever, hits the web and kind of gets trapped and they start to fight, it's when they get wrapped up in it. And um, most people, and you do hear, and look, the bottom line is it is true, okay? It is true that couples who decide to adopt often do fall pregnant,
Mhm.
and it's not because of anything other than the fact that they have finally stopped struggling to get pregnant. Number one, and number two, they're anticipating the love that they're going to feel when this baby comes into their life. They have finally let go of the fight and they're focusing on the love and that opening of the heart. If they, and again, this doesn't happen for all couples who are going to adopt. Sometimes people still don't get pregnant, and that is just part of their journey. We don't know why, and we'll never know why. There's never going to be an answer to that question, but they're still going to be able to be a parent and be a mother and be a father and experience what really being a parent and a mother and father is all about, which is not about the genetics. It's not about the DNA. It's about the love. It's about the giving, the sharing, and being part of some of this transmission of wisdom, this human transmission of wisdom that we get to partake in as a parent. That's what it's about. And so, a lot of times when people just kind of hit that rock bottom place, which you obviously did at some point, you were just like, okay, you know what? I can't live like this anymore. I can't
Mhm.
do all this shit anymore. And what happens is all the extraneous things that were just kind of there, not really doing anything, they were just almost like props, just fall away, and we're back to the basics.
Right.
We're back to just the foundation of things.
Right.
And a lot of times, like I would imagine, you were just so exhausted at that point, you're not going to be able to do a bunch of stuff anyway. So,
Right.
and you probably slept a lot because you finally hit that rock bottom where you're like, man, I'm exhausted. Now I'm just going to sleep and I'm just going to rest. I'm going to start doing all these things and I'm going to start to just let this shit go. Now, again, easier said than done.
Oh, for
There's not a
sure.
magic switch to let it go.
Right.
You just got to get there sometimes. But when you finally do get there and you're really there and you really do let it go, that is a huge, huge biological trigger in the body.
Well,
And
and yeah, and people, here's the other thing. I mean, like this is so good. This could have been 3 shows, Chris, but like what's important about this is that letting go isn't giving up.
no,
Like not at all. Like there wasn't a day like when I decided to get out of cray cray because I was like the mayor, the sheriff, and the, you know, and the treasurer of the town of cray cray pretty much for most of my journey. Um, you know,
cray, California.
yeah, it was cray cray California, and I was also the prosecutor at the time. But like when I got out of that, there wasn't a day I didn't want my son. I just made a conscious choice that I was not going to destroy my life because I finally made a decision to have it all. I wanted to have a life and be on this journey to having my son,
Yep.
that I was going to allow both. And that's the thing is like, I think that people get this wrong idea of surrender and letting go. And it's like, if you could create a mindset, which is what, you know, part of what I teach, if you could create a mindset of certainty and of surrender and acceptance and fun, but still honor that go-getter in you, honor all of these natural characteristics, how much more powerful can you be on this journey? Like you just start shining so bright that it becomes a lot easier for your baby to find you, is what I tell women all the time. And it is so true. Like I see this happening all the time.
And you know, I think one of the most important concepts that you're outlining, and I'm bringing something up because I want to do a visual of it.
Yeah. And hey, ladies, if you guys are watching and you have a question for Chris and I before we wrap this up, we're going to be taking your questions. So just type something in the chat. If you want to say hi, tell us where you're listening from, or you want us to zero in on your question, go ahead and do that. And we will be happy to take that question. Okay. What were you looking at, Chris?
Oh, well, I just want to put this on the screen
Oh,
for
cool.
everybody based on what you just said, because it's really, really important. Um, Surrender is not defeat, and nor is it giving up.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely not. Definitely not. I think that the point you made is really good too. It's giving up the struggle. Like who says you have to struggle? Get off the struggle bus. And sometimes I think a lot of, I mean, because I coach professional women, like I see this a lot, is that we get addicted to struggle because we equate struggle with commitment.
There you go.
Yeah.
So that's going to be, although, you know, again, this was more of a beginner's, you know, topic, but, you know, I think we ended up here because at the end of the day, like, where do you need to start out? Well, start out by being kind to yourself, loving yourself, being merciful with yourself. That's where everything always has to start. And it's funny because when you shift that into that mode, what's going to happen is suddenly your decisions are going to become a lot more clear, and suddenly just everything starts to become a little less. Everything starts to have a little bit less of a sense of doom and gloom, and deathly fear that comes up, because now you've softened the edges and you've really kind of started to bring yourself into a place, really the place that you really want to be with your baby, because really having a baby is about unconditional love, and you can start doing that this very minute and bring that to yourself. So that's where you
Okay.
start.
Well, okay. So Chris, some of these ladies are letting me know that for some reason our chat like is not working. I'm not sure what the hell is going on, but uh there are women that are trying to ask questions. We're gonna have to figure out what went on with this, but
Well, so then where can they, I mean, I guess they could just send their questions
yeah,
to
they can.
somewhere.
Yeah, if you guys want to send your questions really quick to me, Rosanne at frommaybe2baby.com, I'd be happy. Or like you guys can reply to the invite that you guys got to this. Um, let me see here. Yes. Like just reply to that email. Like, I don't know. We're gonna have to unfuck that situation, Chris. But like anyway.
Figure it out.
Yeah, we'll figure it out for next time, loves. Because normally, I mean, we would. Oh, wait, I just see Tanya. Tanya, I just saw that it's working now. Okay. Tanya, did you have a question for us, love? You're all like in it to win it there.
Yeah, maybe refresh your whatever your thingy.
Yeah, maybe.
Whatever your thingy is, refresh it. If you're on your phone or if you're on in your
Yeah,
whatever.
because we're getting message. I just saw Tanya's message, but
Yep. Tanya, hello, it's working now. Thank you, Tanya.
yeah. And so, Chris, and then, we'll just let the ladies know that, hey, we're going to be here every Monday at 3 p.m. Mountain, 4 p.m. Central, which is 5 p.m. Eastern. And I think that's like 10 o'clock in the UK. But yeah, no, I mean, this is like it's been so fun, Chris, just chatting with you. I mean, the subject of, hey, like, look, I've been on this journey, or I'm starting to get on this journey and I'm struggling. I think we've given the ladies like, oh, there's Nat's P23. It's working now. Hey, Chandra Thomas. Chandra's back for more. I love it. And I think, Chris, this is a great thing to start the ladies with, is that like, some very basic information, but let's, over the coming weeks, we're going to be expanding on this. We're going to be sharing a lot more information from, our collective experience, helping women all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
And really helping women make their dream come true, beating those odds and not being confined by, just a super conventional way of looking at things, because we're talking about life, Chris. Life does not necessarily follow the rules that we arbitrarily pick for it. So you got to be smarter and a hell of a lot more resourceful than
that. Yeah. Nature never follows our rules, ever.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. And nature has quite a sense of humor, I think, sometimes.
She does. She has a great sense of humor, and she's beautiful, and she's loving and caring, and she can also be a ruthless bitch when she needs to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just remember that.
Yeah. And isn't it funny? Isn't it absolutely hysterical how if she's trying to teach us a lesson, she'll start with a nudge, then she might start with a whisper, and then she'll pull out the 2x4, the crowbar, the Mack truck if she needs you to learn a lesson.
Yeah.
All from a loving place, though.
Yeah.
And so, all right. Well, so I always tell my ladies, I like to just remind everyone watching that, hey, you got to understand that no matter where you are today, no matter what you're going through, no matter what your reality looks like, you have to know that desire in your heart to be a mom, it's there because it was meant for you. Like, this is real. That feeling that you feel, that desire, that longing, let that be okay. And just be the woman that keeps putting one foot in front of the other. Chris?
Love it.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, ladies, it was so good to spend some time with you guys. It was so fun. Sorry we were had a little bit of technical difficulties there, but we are going to be back. And there's Lucy. Hey, Tanya Davis. So good to see you. And Kemi, it's so good to see you too. So thanks for joining us, loves. And we'll be back again next week. Tearing it up. Chris Axelrad, Rosanne Austin, wishing you a great night, ladies. Take care. Bye-bye.
Later.